Hello and welcome to another episode of Ask a Creative. Today I have Emma Greville with me. Welcome, Emma. It's so lovely to have you.
Thank you for having me here. I'm very excited to be here with you.
We're old chums, really. We've spoken before and we got on like a house on fire. So I'm really
Yeah,
excited
me
to
too.
find out a little bit more about this book because when we were speaking last time, you said that even though it's a relatively new title,
Mm.
it's been a while in the making. Do you want to talk us through kind of how that all happened?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, when you say been a while, you're under underselling it there, aren't you? Because it's been
I
in my
am.
life for, a good couple of decades now.
Mm.
Yeah, so I had my first little glimmer of what this book was going to be about 20-ish years ago, let's say, when I was teaching English in Brazil and I was having a siesta in the middle of the day, which is just about the best thing as an
Oh,
adult you can for a way of life. It's so great. And I had a dream, this really vivid dream about a girl in rags with a monkey sidekick and a crystal mountain. And there was, a wicked witch and wizards and dragons. And it was this amazing dream. And I woke up and I was just like, oh, wow, that is some story. And I wrote down a few notes and then I promptly forgot about it for years and years and years until when I had my first daughter and my, sort of maternal brain kicked in and I started thinking about kids a lot more. And I remembered about this book that I had this idea for. And I started to write some little notes in, crayon over the top of the sleeping baby's head and little bits and pieces here and there. And that's what I've been doing for sort of the last 15 years is bit by bit adding to this story just when I can, like as a busy mum and with everything else that goes on, it's been a bit here, a bit there, a bit here, a bit there, until, 15 years later, I finally have this, a real life book. Thank you.
yay! So
So yeah,
exciting. And
it
and
is.
so the I know you talk about the process happening in bibs and bobs, and it does for a lot of us because we're also saying that I'm a big believer that we write in our head a lot before pen ever touches
Absolutely.
paper. How did you find that? Because I know there's this school of thought where people are told that they should be writing every day and they should be, you know, practicing writing schedules. Like for me,
Mm,
personally, that doesn't work. Like my writing happens in spurts and in between school sport and
yeah.
middle of the night. So I want to, if you can talk a little bit about that and how, for the people who are listening who are busy like us,
Mm.
that it's still possible to develop that story and as long as you honor that story, you don't have to be guilty that you're not sitting down in one go and writing it.
Absolutely. And it drives me quite wild. And I find this is really it's on TikTok a lot where you have these writing coaches and they give out this one size fits all writing advice, and it will be, you have to write 1,000 words a day if you want to improve your craft. And it's very, very narrow minded, and
Mm.
unfortunately most of these writing coaches, they just want to sell you their course or their book, and it's not geared to each individual writer. And I do know creatives who do sit down, they get up at 5:30 in the morning before the kids get up, and they do an hour writing sprint. And that's brilliant if you can do it. I can't. If I got up at 5:30 every morning, I would die after about a week. But I also wouldn't write anything good because that's not how it works. And I can go literal weeks without actually writing anything. But in that time, because I think about writing like all the time. If I'm not actively engaged in doing something that takes all my attention at that given time, you can pretty much guess that I'm thinking about a book or a story or working through some plot holes. And people really underestimate how important that is. And I think you can tell a book that someone has just kind of taken some advice and, maybe looked at a book like sort of Save the Cat or something that tells you you have to have all these beats and it has to be like this. And they just go, I'm just going to write a book and get it out there and it will sell. And it does sell. And if that's the way you want to write, again, I'm not telling people how to write because I think no one can do that. But so if that's your style and that's what you want to do, carry on, go for it, put your book up on Amazon and start writing the next one. For a lot of us, it's more about the art of writing and the craft of writing, and we can't just bang out the words, but we spend 75% of our time thinking about these characters and about the plot, and then when it comes to writing it, the words flow because we know these characters, we know how they're going to act in the situation. Well, actually that's not quite true because characters often do the opposite of what we think they're going to. Yeah. But we know the world really well. We know the background. We know our magic systems because we've thought through everything. So never ever underestimate. If you can only write 1,000 words in a week, you're still a writer. You're just as important as the person who's knocking out 1,000 words every day.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think for me, when I've seen talking to emerging writers over the last 10 years and seeing people who were my peers when I started and seeing people who have dropped away, the main reason that they've dropped away is not because they don't love writing or because they don't want to publish the book anymore. I think it's because they have compared themselves to other people or compared their journey to other people or done these courses or watched online that saying there is a one way that you should be doing and there isn't. And can you talk a little bit about your journey to publication and how all that happened?
Well, my journey to publication has definitely not been along a nice straight path, but that's kind of not really my style anyway. The way that I live my life, to paraphrase Nanny Ogg from Terry Pratchett, her philosophy of life was to do whatever she feels like doing and to do it as hard as possible. And that's kind of what I've done. So every time like I've seen a little door open up or a different avenue towards publishing, my general thought is like, well, what's the worst that can happen? So I took a really, really long time to finish writing this book, which, again, you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to get up at 5:30 in the morning and write. So it took me 15 years. I was finished with my 11 billionth draft just before COVID hit, actually, and I thought, right, this is it. I'm going to be a world famous author. This is perfect. And I approached a very well-known Australian editor, Kathy Tasker, and I said, I'm ready for an editor. And she had a look at the first couple of chapters, and she very nicely said, you are not ready for an editor. You should probably do a writing course, because I was a busy mum, and although I've actually got a master's in literary criticism myself, so I can recognize good literature, I was too kind of like in the book, and I'd forgotten a lot of things that I should have picked up on, but I didn't, because it's really hard to read your own writing and be impartial. So luckily, I could do a 12-month course at the Australian Writers' Centre with Kathy, and she took me and the manuscript and she whipped us both into shape, and it was invaluable. It was amazing. And this course, for example, is the difference between doing a course that is tailored towards yourself and your manuscript and just going onto TikTok and finding a writing coach and just following what they say. So that was amazing. And so we finished the book, and I was quite pleased with it. And I was just about to, I think I did actually send out one query, and I think it was to Affirm Press. So Affirm, I'm extremely sorry for the awful query that I forced you to read through, because I just kind of Googled query letter, and it was an appalling pitch. There wasn't a pitch, there wasn't a hook. I'm so embarrassed by how bad it was now that I know. And I did that and obviously there was crickets. I didn't hear anything back. So doing everything back to front, I then decided to kind of, like work out what a new author should be doing. And I found out that you're supposed to have a presence on Instagram, be on TikTok, be on Twitter, have an author Facebook page. And, you can probably guess how many of these things I had been doing. It was a cool zero. So I then started to do all that. And I was still thinking at this point, I'm going to pursue a traditional publishing deal. And then, of course, COVID hit and I had a brand new baby at home. And I also was lucky enough to get a scholarship to study editing at Capstone Editing College. And I was homeschooling 4 kids. So life was really crazy. This was 2021. It was nuts. So I just kind of stopped doing everything. But I was on Instagram and I met so many amazing indie authors, and I found this absolutely gorgeous, welcoming, supportive, really enthusiastic community of like-minded people. And it was amazing because I'd been this kind of lonely, isolated author, and suddenly I had people gunning for me, and I thought, oh wow. And then I thought maybe this is the way that I want to go. And I got in touch with some indie kidlit authors like Eleanor Page and Brett Perkins and Adam Wallace. And I got so much great advice. I just thought, yeah, I can't be bothered to wait another 2 years to maybe get accepted, maybe not, maybe have to rewrite. I knew it was a good book because, if Kathy Tasker says you've got a good book, you believe her. So I just thought, yeah, it's time to back myself. So I indie published my little book a couple of months ago.
Yay!
Thank
you.
I'm
so happy that you did. And I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realize that you've touched on is that traditional publishing takes time. You don't have control over so many things, and one of those things you don't have control is how long it takes for them to actually accept it, and then once it is accepted, how long it takes for it to actually come out or be released. So if you're someone who's not very patient like me, even though I am traditionally published, like I find that quite difficult with the submission process, and also being able to look at it from both sides. I love the creative control that I have when I independently publish. So how did you go about that, like making decisions on cover and layout and that? Did you find that difficult, or did you actually like that you had that control?
So I've been through like how busy I was when I started to go through this process. And so the reason to indie publish for me was mainly about the time frame. Like I wasn't willing to wait 3 years with no guarantees of publication. And I think what people don't realize is that just because you choose to indie publish doesn't mean that your book is any lesser in quality, but there are far many books that are worthy of publication than there are spaces in the publishers. It's just the scales are like this. And a lot of the sort of, breakout debut novelists that you hear about, it's not their first manuscript, it's their third manuscript. And I simply wasn't willing to put Raine. Every novelist talks about the first manuscript they've got in a drawer because they couldn't find a traditional publisher. And I thought, that's not happening with Raine. This book is too good. But I also knew that I didn't at that time have the mental capacity to deal with absolutely everything myself. So I went to a small press called Shoreline, and it's a partnership publishing. So we've both put into everything, to the costs and to the creative process. So they found the cover designer and the illustrator, and the editor they found for me was wonderful in tidying up the few bits that still needed doing, and all through that process, because it is an indie small press, I could say, no, I don't want you to do this, I don't want you to do that, and I did get them to tweak the cover. Like it's a beautiful cover, but there were things that just needed to be tweaked a little bit. And that's the beauty of what you can do with indie publishing, and of course you will have a book at the end of it. So if you're feeling a little bit reticent about whether you're going to get anywhere with your first book with traditional publishing, it's definitely the way to go. And it's a kids book, and I have not had a single child or parent or school say, well, who's the publisher? So the readers don't care who it's published by.
That's so cool. There's one thing that you said there about how many people have got books that are good books that should be out there in the world, but because they've decided there is only one pathway to publication, that hasn't happened. Now obviously everybody is not in a financial position to go and invest in themselves and do that. I totally understand that, but I also think that if you have a story that you love and that you're passionate about, then if just because there is one gatekeeper saying we can't offer you a spot, it doesn't mean it's a reflection on your writing. It just means that there is not enough space on a particular
absolutely
business plan for that. So and I think you came into this with a really interesting and amazing attitude when you were looking at your book, because a lot of people find it quite hard to reconcile being creative but also being someone who is willing to get out there and promote their book and do what they need to do to get it in front of the kids who are going to benefit most by reading it. Can you talk a little bit around how you kind of balance that in your head and how you get around the fact that you have to be kind of both sides of the coin?
So like a lot of writers, I'm quite an introvert. Being a stay-at-home mum for 15 years suited me down to the ground. I wore my yoga pants every day for 15 years and didn't speak to anyone. It was brilliant and I loved it. But unfortunately all those things do come to an end, and I was absolutely terrified about the marketing bit of it, and it was all a whole new experience to me. But then it was actually while I was just kind of looking at my own kids and sending them off to school and expecting them to do new things every day. Like we're always expecting them to just jump feet first into new experiences, whether it's sports or drama club or school with new friends or new teachers, or we decide to move across the country and have them start everything afresh. And our kids they do get on with it. And I thought, if my kids and all these other kids that I'm writing for can be brave, then I, as a middle-aged woman, can also be a little bit brave. And you just have to kind of suck it up and put on your big girl pants and just fake it until you make it, as they say. So I started off very sort of quietly on Instagram, and I remember doing my first ever TikTok video and like dying on the inside. But again, I was telling my kids about this and they were like, wow, Mom, this is so great. And then making these lovely friends on Instagram who all support you, and you just kind of slowly build up that confidence. And I think it was actually my first school visit I booked, and I didn't charge any money for it because I thought, oh God, this is going to be awful and I'm going to get stage fright. And I did it, and it was the most fun I have had for such a long time, just hanging out. I had 100 kids, grade 3s and 4s, and it was fantastic. And I felt like a rock star because they thought I was just like a real live author to these kids is just amazing. And like I said, they didn't care if I produced my book or if, you know, Scholastic produced my book. They didn't care. And I think it's building up that sort of word of mouth. Once you've got the kids on your side, that's the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell us a little bit about the story itself. I know you got the inspiration from the dream, and then as life kind of happened, you were able to add all this beautiful, rich content into it. Tell us a little bit about why you love this book and your characters so much.
Well, the book itself, I'm a fantasy reader. I grew up starting off with The Worst Witch, and then I grew into Terry Pratchett, and I continue to read the Discworld novels. They're like the sort of the background narrative to my life. So I always knew I was going to write a fantasy story. But as I watched my own children grow, and especially sort of post-COVID, I could see isolation appearing in these kids' lives. As you know, they were stuck at home, and the kind of the themes and worries of the kids in the generation we've got now, along with, you know, social media and stuff, there's a lot of self-esteem issues and isolation. So I started to kind of put that into my story a bit more. And Raine, the main character, she does deal with some darker themes that a lot of kids do face. You know, she's got a dysfunctional family. There's like the evil stepfather, which, you know, is a massive fairy tale trope, the evil step parent, but, you know, we've switched it on its head here. It's a stepfather. She's got low self-esteem. She's really lonely, and she's actually sitting on her doorstep listening to her mum and stepdad argue when the story starts, and she, you know, she's sitting outside, and they don't have a lot of money, which again, you know, is another thing that kids are experiencing nowadays. So although it's a fantastical tale, it's really grounded in, you know, universal themes of friendship and self-esteem and navigating relationships that kids are dealing with every day. It's just done through this veil of kind of, you know, fighting dragons and magical mayhem. So she's just sitting outside, and then she meets a strange man called Uncle Johnny, and this starts a catalyst of sparking off her magical capabilities. And she shoots a blue flame through her window, and the stepfather's furious, and he throws her into the basement, where she finds a cursed baby dragon. And in helping this baby dragon find its way home, she kicks a portal through worlds, and then she goes on this fabulous adventure in a place called the Underlands.
Oh, goodness me. My brain is just going bing, 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 bing. Yes, love it. Ticking so many boxes in my brain. That's amazing. And what's next?
Well, being the person that I am, again, you know, just doing whatever seems like a good idea and doing it as hard as possible. I'm about halfway through book 2, which is Raine in the Dark, which if you've read Raine in the Underlands, you'll know that's it could be quite creepy. Book number 2, it's definitely taking a few twists and turns. So I'm halfway through that, and I should be concentrating on doing that. But because of the way my brain works, I'm not. I'm also writing another middle grade, which I think may be a standalone or it may be a series. Who knows? Because I never know what's going to happen. Which is based in Geelong, where I live, around the old jail, which is a very, very, very creepy and nasty place. So obviously, it's a ghost story, which is my favorite. I love ghost stories, so I am loving writing this one.
Don't you love it?
Short stories, and there's a couple of picture book manuscripts as well. So it's, you know, if you could look inside my brain, it's just like there's a hurricane of words in there.
Oh, yeah, I feel you, sister. Like my spirit animal is a squirrel. So that's how my brain works. So telling my squirrel brain to sit down and write every day is ridiculous, because half the time he's asleep, or he's climbing up a tree, or he's lost his nuts. Like, that's just my brain. So
Yeah.
like I get that. And my eldest boy did an IT degree, and he looks at my laptop, and when I go to school visits, I show the kids my writing laptop and the ridiculous amount of half finished Word documents on my home screen. And
everywhere.
It gives everyone a panic attack. Like, what is going on? It's like I can't put them in a folder yet. They're not finished.
Yes.
It's like, how can you have? Anyway, it works for me.
Mine's exactly the same.
Yeah, and do what works for you. I think
and you know
that's
half the time when I open my laptop, I don't even know which one I'm going to work on. I open it up and I'll look at a couple of them and I'll go, oh yeah, I've got something good to put there. Or, or half the time I'll just close the laptop again and go for a walk instead.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could say one thing to the aspiring author who is watching this and starting to have that kind of little brain synapses going, wait a second, like, she said I can do it anyway. what would you say to that person?
I would say that sometimes you just have to back yourself. You have to just not listen to what anyone else has got to say. And I wouldn't have done half the exciting things that I've done in my life if I'd taken any notice of what other people say. And I reckon that 75% of the time it's turned out to be awesome, and 25% of the time not so much. So I think you should just jump into everything feet first and have a go. And your first draft might be awful. It might be one of those manuscripts that ends up gathering dust in a drawer. It might be amazing. I mean, I started off just writing short stories, and some of them are awful and some of them are award-winning worthy. So you've just got to back yourself. And I do think it's weird because we approach writing as a business when more often we should just approach it as an art and a creative process that you're supposed to just have fun with. And we don't tell people who want to learn life drawing that they have to draw every single day for an hour or they'll be rubbish and there's no point in starting. And by the way, you'll never make any money from life drawing, so what's the point? So I think we need to respect writing as another art, and if we do that, then you can carve out what little bits and pieces of time. And it doesn't matter if you write five sentences and then immediately delete them. It's all exercising those creative muscles. So I say go for it. If you want to, just go for it and don't listen to anyone else.
Go for it. I love that. Now, if Emma, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way that they can do that?
The best way is on my website, which is just emgreville.com. And on there, they can get in touch with me. They can read about my crazy life. I do a monthly writing competition for young writers. So anyone under the age of 18 can hop on there to a monthly writing prompt and write me a little story. And I publish my favorite one on the website. And then at the end of the year, I'm going to choose my favorite story from the whole year and invite that young writer to collaborate on a character in Raine in the Dark with me.
So exciting.
That's really exciting.
Oh
yes.
My gosh, I love that. That's so much fun. Now, if people want to get a copy of the Raine series, where's the best way that they can do that?
So you can buy it everywhere online that you can buy your books. You can also go into your local bookshop and they can order it for you, or you can go to Shoreline Publishing Group online and order it from them. And very soon I will have it on my website, but you might have worked out, I'm not very organized. So
it always gets done in the end. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. I will put links to all of that in the comments. Fabulous. So if you want to get in touch with Emma and buy her books or talk to her a little bit more about her process or talk to her about speaking at your school or your writers group, make sure that you get in touch. And I can't wait to chat to you again when book 2 comes out.
Yes, which might be soon, or it might be a while. Who knows?
Who knows? Whenever the universe decides, that will happen.
Exactly, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for spending the time with me today. I really appreciate you being so open and honest and frank about your writing journey. And I think you're going to help so many and inspire so many people. So thank you so much.